Hello and welcome back to the Ultimate Business Course. Today we're going to be having a look at your leads. So we've done all the hard work of your marketing and your branding and everything that's gone before, and now we want to actually connect all of that hard work to real people, to your ideal customers or clients. And so we're going to look at how to structure your contact database, what to do with the data, how to use it strategically and effectively. And then we're going to look at some CRM options so that you can manage your data effectively. So what I'd like to do in this case is actually go through a detailed tutorial on your MailChimp, setting up and using MailChimp, and then look at a few other potential options for CRMs. So let's get started with some quotes and statistics. Peter Drucker, management consultant, said, "The aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well the product or service fits him and sells itself." And here's some interesting statistics about contact databases. Okay, let's look at your emails. The industry standard percentage for undeliverable mail coming back should be no more than 7%. So if you have a lot of email bouncing back, then you need to really have a good look at your data and make sure that you are keeping your database clean with relevant, up-to-date contact information. Google is the most accurate and detailed source of business data in the UK, scoring 58.8% accuracy. And by comparison, the phone book features a wrong phone number in 27.8% of the cases and a wrong address in 2.9% of the cases, and also has 20.8% duplicate entries. And so as you can see there's a lot of data out there, and even though there's so much data out there, there's a lot of it that's wrong. And so it's essential that when you're building your contact database, that you're not only building it, but you're continually looking at your data, revising it, checking that it is current, clean data, and that you're not getting an awful lot of bounce backs or just sending out all of your good hard work to completely irrelevant data that just doesn't exist anymore. Here's some more good information. You can improve your business by creating an extensive and good quality contact database that will dramatically improve your business chances of success. You can maintain data integrity by limiting the number of people who have access to your database and by protecting the accuracy and reliability of your data. And you can segment your data so that your marketing strategy and tactics are accurate. And so we're going to have a good look at that today when we look at the MailChimp way of taking care of your data. We're going to have a good look at segmenting and keeping your data current and accurate. Now, you also want to look at not only contact details, but information, vital information. So why are people buying from you? Where are they finding you? All of this sort of information is really, really important when you are creating your contact database. Have you considered that you have the potential to reach 8 million people? What? I bet you didn't know that. So they say that you should be able to quite easily list 200 people. And then if you consider that those 200 people will probably know about 200 people, then those people will probably know about 200 people. The number you get just from 2 degrees is 8 million. So when you are pitching your marketing, think of the 8 million, because you're not only pitching your marketing to who you know, but also to who they know and who they know. And ideally, if you are marketing effectively, or if you're doing a great job with your marketing, then your database instantly, simply from who you know, has an 8 million lead potential. But of course, there are so many other ways to gather leads effectively. And so what you want to do is really consider, when you're doing your marketing, that you have this massive audience that you could potentially reach. So how do you get those 200 people to share with their 200, and how do you get those 200 to share with their 200? Now that's a true challenge, and if you can achieve that, then you really and truly are marketing effectively. So let's take a look at your contact database. What we want to do is we want to start with the absolute basics. When I learned bookkeeping, I learned the old-fashioned way, a cash book with columns and a pencil and a rubber, and I sat there and I had to write everything up and balance it manually, and it was the best thing for me to learn bookkeeping, really from the absolute basic level. And then when I went on to bookkeeping software, it was so much easier to understand how things worked and why they worked in the way they did. In the same way, we want to do that today with your contact database. So no matter where you're at in your database journey, let's start from the absolute basics. So grab a spreadsheet or a piece of paper and write out your columns. So the very first column you want to allocate to is a column that you're going to leave blank, and I'll explain why in a bit later. Next, you want to look at your people and their contact information. So we start off with listing their names and surnames. So you want to allocate a column to name and surname individually. Now this is really important, because if you want to do mail merges or send data out and use the first name for the personal touch, then you need to be able to access that first name independent of the last name. If you've got first name and last name in one column, then you're going to have great difficulty in using mail merge features in your CRM. Next, you want to look at information such as email address, website, perhaps you want that information, and then perhaps telephone information. So again, keep your mobile phone number list column separate from your landline column, because you may want to use software that will allow you to text people, and you don't want to be texting landlines. I've done that and received that. Have you ever heard those funny automated robot-like messages that come through in your landline because somebody has accidentally texted your landline? So keep your phone numbers in separate columns, mobile and landlines. And then next you want to look at things like perhaps birthdays, perhaps anniversaries. It depends on your target market and what you plan to do, but you may find it very useful to know people's birth dates. And if you can get birth years, you'll find out a little bit later why that could be very useful for your marketing as well. Then you want to look at your marketing section of your contact database. Now this is crucial information. This section of your database is going to tell you where people are finding you. And based on that information, then you can make a whole bunch of decisions. So you want to have a way of capturing where people are finding you. Now, if we're still doing it in the flat spreadsheet method, then perhaps you would have several columns for your channels to market. So you'd have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn for your social media channels. Perhaps you'd have newspaper, radio, or whatever press you want to use. Perhaps you'd have some online directories where you've listed your business. No matter what your channels to market are, and remember there should be at least 20 of them, you need to list them either in an individual column so that when you import the data or use the data, you can quickly find out who's came in through what method, or you could create a drop-down list in one column where whoever's using the spreadsheet would have to select one of the pre-formatted channels to market. Now, you don't want to go and allow people or yourself to randomly write things in your marketing column. For example, a friend referred them to me through an event I went to, or I went to a networking event, or bumped into somebody walking their dog. If you wanted to access that data one day and find out the trends and patterns, then you're going to have great difficulty if your marketing columns aren't consistent. So you really want to make sure that if it's Facebook, it says Facebook consistently, one word, spelled correctly every single time, so that if you ever want to know how many people come to you through Facebook, you can quickly pull up that data and see, oh look, 25% of my business has come from Facebook, because your database is set up in a way that you can quickly extract that information. Another thing that you really want to factor into your contact database is a method of communication. If your target audience are all being contacted in the way that suits you, you're going to miss people. Some people, if they are phone people and prefer to be contacted by the phone, will be very annoyed with you if all you ever do is email them. They'll think you're just being plain rude or avoiding them if you don't bother to pick up the phone and make a phone call. And also, likewise, people perhaps don't want you to send them a text message about business. They like to keep their text message channels for personal use, or they don't mind you texting them at all, but how would you know? You need to keep contact preferences in your spreadsheet so that you can reach out to them according to their preference. If they prefer to chat on LinkedIn, you need to know that you need to pick up the conversation in LinkedIn. If they don't mind email, you need to know it's okay to email them. If they don't want business chat on Facebook, then you need to make sure that you respect that. And so it's essential that you have a column where you clearly state their preference if you know it. And if you don't know, take time to find out. Next thing you want to do is you want to start writing down names of people that you know. So you've got your spreadsheet, and across the top you've got all of your headings and all of your columns nicely ready. Now you want to actually fill these columns in with real people. So you should be able to name about 150 to 200 people that you know. It can be absolutely anybody. Don't underestimate the person that you bump into every Friday night to buy your fish and chips or whatever the case may be. Don't think that anybody is irrelevant. At this point, every single person is relevant. You don't know who they know or who they know, and don't be too scared to just take conversation a little bit further than you usually would. You never know what gems might be out there in your everyday life. So have a look at this little graph, this little chart that I've come up with. So you could do the same. Put you in the middle, and then think about all the places you go and things that you do during the course of your day, all the various places where you encounter people. And if you are able to, remember those people, write down their contact details in your spreadsheet. Write down their name if you don't have their contact details. Just start to think about your world and the people in your world. And then consider if these people could potentially either be a client or know somebody who could be a client. And so you want to constantly be talking to people. You don't want to be targeting people. You want to be constantly talking to people. You want to make sure that you are learning about people and understanding them and even listening to their pain points or just being friendly. Friendly people are irresistible. So you're going to write as many contacts as possible into your contact database. If you already have data, then pull that into your spreadsheet so we can start grouping them and sorting the data. So what we're going to do in the very first column that you recall we left blank is we're going to allocate an A, B, C or D to that person. So every single person should end up with an A, B, C or D. Now A stands for advocate, and your advocate should make up about 10% of your database. You don't actually want a lot of advocates, and you'll find out later why. If you have too many advocates, it can become very expensive and it could take up a lot of your time. So your advocates are the people who really support you. They know what you do, they get what you do, they talk to other people about what you do, and they're always there for you, always supporting you. These people are very important, so you need to allocate an A next to their names. So go through your list of data and have a look who your advocates would be, and in that very first column, you allocate an A. Next, you want to look at the B. B's are believers. They constitute about 20% of your database. Now, your believers, they know what you do, and they may or may not share it, but they're not that involved and passionate as your advocates are. They are people who you may ask to share or like, but they're not those people that are automatically going to share and like and get involved as your advocates would. Next, we have your C, and those are your casual contacts. Now, this will make up about 60% of your database. These people may or may not know what you do, but they are willing to stay on your mailing list, or they are willing to be your Facebook friend, or whatever the case may be. These are your casual contacts. These are also potentially the people you're bumping into at the school run, or when you pick up your fish and chips on Friday night, or whatever the case may be. These are all your casual contacts, and they're willing to receive information from you, so you will keep your casual contacts in the loop. And then finally, we look at your D's, and your D stands for delete or do not contact, and this will make up about 10% of your database. And it's really important that you understand 10% is D's and 10% is A's, and they are both equally important, because knowing who not to do business with is just as important as knowing who to do business with. And some people should not be involved in your business life. And sadly, this could even be friends or family. You can keep your close personal relationship with them, but they should not be on your contact database for business, because they are bad for business in one way or another, or just plain discouraging to you. Some people you want to put on your D-list because you don't want to be associated with them, because purely or merely by association will people look at you in the way they look at them. And so there's some people that you just want to distance yourself from, and so they are your Ds. And in the case of the Women's Business Club, there have been people who have not wanted to allow into membership for very specific reasons. They were damaging to the club. For example, if somebody comes in and they are gossiping frequently, that is not welcome in the Women's Business Club, and we do not want businesswomen like that into our club. Gossip is one of the most damaging things in the business world, or in any world, in any person's life. So that's just an example. And so we have ways of very diplomatically and nicely having people on our D list, and we keep them at a distance, and another D. And so it's really important that you do have that, but we say allocate a D to them because you don't actually want to delete them from your database, because then there runs the danger of having them re-added at another date. You also may want to put a brief reason in your description column, if you've created one, about why they're a D, so that if you have a team or you're working with other people, they can quickly see the reasons. You don't want that to become public information, of course, and also you need to be very careful what you're writing in that explanation in case somebody comes across it and it gets leaked. Now, hopefully that will never happen, but the point is just be careful. If possible, don't put anything there at all. So that's how you're going to arrange your data into your A, B, C, Ds. And a little later, we're going to have a look at how we can use that data. But just for the time being, think of it this way. If I'm looking for a particular group of people in a particular area for a very specific product launch or service launch or event, then I want to quickly be able to access those people out my database. So I could, for example, call out all the A's who are in Bath, and then I could invite them to this particular thing because it's by area and it's by their category. And so that's one of the ways that you could use the data. There are many other ways, and we're going to go into that in a bit. Now remember that your business data can decay at a rate of 25% or more per annum. So it's essential that you are continually checking your data and keeping it up to date and making changes to unsubscribers or changing contact information every single time it comes available. Then make those changes so that you keep your database up to date. The next thing we want to do is look at the various ways that we connect with the different generations in your database. Now, this is why I said previously that it would be great if people would give you their birth date and year, because this could give you a better idea of the generation that they fall into. Now, this generation information is general. It's general. There's always the exception to the rule, but this will give you a little bit of an idea of how you can connect with particular generations that you find in your database. Here are some examples of why you'd want to consider that. 4 generations, each having different moral standards, different backgrounds and experiences, different methodologies, different communication preferences, different expectations from work and family life, and different physical and mental abilities. So it's really important that we try our best to connect with each generation as effectively as possible. So the very first generation is what's known as your veterans, and they were born between 1922 and 1946 and are between 69 to 71 years old. And they will make up 6.5% of the workforce. Now, this generation were conformers that lived through the war and were raised with a great deal of discipline and respect. And that's what they would expect from us when we are connecting with them. They would like to be treated with respect. It's Mr. or Mrs. and you speak to them in a more formal tone, and you show the respect that they deserve. They do deserve respect because they've lived for a long time, they have a wealth of experience, and they deserve to be treated with respect. but most importantly, they prefer to be treated with respect, and we need to treat them according to their preference. Now, the veterans' attitude towards money is to pay cash and save. And so when you're pitching your marketing to this generation, you're obviously going to want to pitch in a way that they're willing to part with their hard-earned, saved-up money. So you really need to look at speaking to them in terms of investing their money. And also they're probably at that age where they factored in their limited income. Perhaps they're retired or don't have as much as they did when they were younger. Maybe they have plenty. But the point is that that's their attitude to money. And so you need to speak to them in a way that they're comfortable parting with their money. And so you would like to offer them investment opportunities. The other things to consider with veterans is that their communication preferences are in person or a letter. They prefer their communication to have clear expectations and no time pressure. They enjoy talking about times past. So if you do spend time with the veteran, allow them to talk about times past and various things, so that they can just feel that you are willing to listen and care about what they have to say. You're not just in it to take their money and have a quick sale. They do prefer formal communication, and they like the message that their contribution is respected. And so when dealing with a veteran, really show them that you do value their opinion, that you respect what they have to say, and allow them to share what they have to say with you, and be patient and listen to it. And then if you have something to say or contribute or to sell, you do it in a very respectful way. Baby boomers were born between 1947 and 1964 and are 49 to 66 years old. They make up 41% of the workforce, and they are optimists that value what they have. They had to work hard for it, and they live to work. Now, this generation's attitude towards money is to pay by credit. And if your target audience tends to make up a lot of baby boomers, make sure that you have credit card facilities. There's nothing more frustrating than having made a sale, then you can't take payment. And so it's really important that if this is where most of your ideal clients are situated, then make sure that you have set up your credit card payment facilities. Now, one of the easiest ways to take a credit card payment is by sending a PayPal invoice. However, there are charges. So you may want to suggest to your customer or your client that if you aren't set up for credit cards, that you're willing to take a PayPal payment from them so they can use their credit card, but that you're going to add the PayPal fees on top of it. And I've never had anybody object to that because they prefer to use their credit card. They don't mind paying the extra, but it varies from person to person. But if you do find that you're going to be doing a lot of this sort of thing, then it would be advisable to set up some sort of facilities to allow you to take credit card payments. Now, baby boomers, they prefer communication by telephone, and they're happy to be challenged and coached, and they don't mind if you phone them at any time. It's not a problem. Their communication needs to be motivational, and the message needs to be that they're needed. So that would be the way that you would communicate with your baby boomers effectively. Generation X were born between 1965 and 1980, and they're between 33 to 48 years old. They make up 29% of the workforce. They are skeptics who are brought up by busy parents who are working very, very hard. And so we deal with this generation very differently. This generation, they work to live. They don't live to work. And so we need to understand that about them. And their spending habits will be very much earn to spend. So we'll deal with this generation differently to the first two generations. So Generation X's attitude towards spending is to save. And so very much like the veterans, you really want to make sure that your message is speaking of investing and helping them see the value of what you have to offer. They prefer mobile communications, but during office hours. The Generation X really don't like being bothered after office hours with business matters. And they prefer the form of communication to be relaxed and informal. They also prefer that the message is that they have freedom to explore and try new things. And so when you're communicating with the Generation X, you don't want to prescribe this is exactly how it has to be done, or this is exactly how you must do it, but more a case of, well, this is how we do it, why don't you try your way, or why don't you have a play around with this and tell us what you think. Generation Y were born from 1981 to now, and they make up about 22.5% of the workforce. The Generation Ys have a very short concentration span because they are used to everything happening very quickly. Twitter, microwave, everything is fast-paced, and so they do tend to have a very short attention span. So if you're going to be dealing and marketing to this generation, don't come up with very long-winded marketing messages because they're going to switch off before you know it. Make sure your marketing is punchy, to the point, exciting and attractive. Generation Y's attitude to spending is to earn to spend. They like to spend money, they like to buy things, they like to have experiences, and so they really do like to work hard so that they have a lot of disposable income. They prefer social media communication and casual communication, and they like the message that they have what it takes. So when you're communicating or marketing with somebody from a Generation Y, reinforce that message that we believe in you, you have what it takes, and then do the whole motivational Tony Robbins type of message to them, because that really appeals to this generation. And so as you can see, when we're dealing with your contact database, there are lots of different factors to consider. And it can be very, very time consuming, but also very worthwhile to segment your data into all these various categories to understand what they want. So that when you're pitching to them, when you're communicating with them, marketing to them, you're getting the message, the right message to the right people. And that's essential. So rather than have a massive database and sending the same message out to every single person, rather keep your contact database at a manageable level so that you can send the right message to the right people and then get them the best possible results. And so take your time to allocate a column in your contact database for the generation type, so that perhaps you want to say, I'm going to do some marketing to generate to the veterans in Cheltenham, and you're going to then say your A list or your B list. You can pull all of that information out of your database and send a letter. Dear Mr. Smith, I would very much like to invite you to an upcoming event, etc., etc. So you know that you are dealing with A's. So you remember who your A's are. You are dealing with Cheltenham, which is just a geographical area, and you are dealing with veterans. And so you've pulled all of this data out of your database so that you can send them a formal letter, because that's how they prefer to be communicated with. Then, for the same event, you may want to invite your B's, who are another generation, say your Generation Y. So you're going to then pull out all of your Generation Ys, all of your Bs, and then you're going to send them a social media message inviting them to an event, for example. So can you see how crucial it is that you collect your data and organize your data effectively so that you're getting the right message to the right people? And I can't stress that enough. I know I've said it several times, but you are going to have a much better return. You're going to have the respect of many more people. You're going to build a business far more effectively if you're going to do your marketing strategically and intentionally, understanding your contact database and bringing people to you because you've taken the time to connect with them in a way that suits them, in a way that's important to them. And so that's why I did say it's really important to have, as far as possible, have the date of birth in your contact database so that you can make all these decisions about contact preferences, etc., etc. If you can't, then why don't you just try and guesstimate if you've met them or if you know something about them, so that at least you have a rough idea. So where they haven't indicated their contact preference, you can always go by the generation to try and make a better informed decision about how you're going to contact them. And so this way of dealing with your contact database, as you can see, can be really useful, really effective. If you invest the time in it, setting it up correctly, then when you need the information, you can very quickly pull that information out and use it. So I hope that's helpful, and I'm sure you'll come up with a few other creative columns or unique ways that you can then tap into your database and use it to build your business. Over on the next video, we're going to go through taking all of this data and putting it into MailChimp, and I'm going to show you how to organize it within MailChimp so that you can have all of that data in MailChimp and quickly pull that data out of MailChimp. Now, MailChimp would be a very basic level CRM, but it is highly effective. Don't underestimate it. I use it an awful lot and I'm a huge fan. But if you have used MailChimp, you can still import the data that you put in your spreadsheet into any other CRM, and CRM principles are quite similar. So come on over with me to the next video and we'll have a look at putting this data now into a system.